Hey everybody, welcome to Board Games with the Family. Today we're taking a look at Gravwell, Escape from the Ninth Dimension. It's a game by Cryptozoic. It's for between 1 and 4 players, plays in around 20 to 35 minutes, and the age on the box says 15 plus, but we'll probably talk about more of that later. So as usual, what we're doing, this will be a rules video, then we will do a quick gameplay demo, and finally, I'll come back and my final thoughts or my summary, my review, call it what you want. So, first of all, let's show you the board. Here's the board. It's set up for a 3-player game. You can see we've got the black player, yellow player, and the red player. Aim of the game is each player starts in what they call the singularity. The aim of the game is to be the first player to make it all the way around the track and reach the end, the warp gate. So let's talk about setup first of all. The game is very, very quick to set up. You place your player ships in the middle. You place the 2 derelict ships on the yellow spaces indicated. You put the round marker here. And then you shuffle the deck of 26 cards, which look a little like that on the back. So I think probably, bear in mind this is a card-driven game, I think it's probably best to start with the cards. And then we'll show you how to play. So here's an example of one of the cards. There are 3 things to look at on the card. The first one is the colour and the symbol. Now there are 3 different types. There's the yellow, there's the blue with the little arrows, and there's a pink with the sort of what looks like a Wi-Fi signal coming out of it. The colour and symbol, and these are 3 different types, there are only 3 different types in the game, dictate the type of movement. The number dictates how far you're going to move, and the letter dictates when you're going to move. So what do we mean by that? So let's start with the yellow one first of all, because yellow is almost the standard one. And in fact, if you look here, this is on the board, this shows you a distribution of all the cards. So from A to Z, obviously the longer the spike, the further they move, and obviously the colours represent the colours. So as you can see from here, it's clear that yellow is the commonest. Commonest? Most common. So going back to this, what yellow does, yellow is a standard movement, and what it will do, it will move you towards the closest ship. What do we mean by that? Well, let's come back to the board and have a look. So at the beginning of the game, everybody's in the singularity. Now, when you're in the singularity, you essentially count as being off the board for the purposes of gravity. I think the way the rules phrase it is, you don't emit a Gravwell. So in this case, imagine the black player's the one moving. These 2 don't count because they're in the singularity with black. So the next one on the board would be this derelict ship. So in this case, black would move 5 spaces towards the derelict ship. So he literally goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ends up there. Now, for the other 2, so that's yellow, and that's the most common. Now, bearing in mind, and I think what we'll do, we'll set up the board a little bit differently here to show you some more examples. So, that's great. If yellow or black had played that card, this is a card, remember? They would have moved forward, okay? So if yellow had played it, he would move, actually, if yellow had played it, from here he would have moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? If black had played it, he would have moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. If red had played it, however, the nearest ship to red is yellow. So what he would do, he doesn't move forward, he moves towards the nearest ship. So he'd actually move back 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's important that the yellow does not move you forward, it moves you towards the nearest ship. Okay, let's set this back up again and let's have a look at a different example. Now we have neon. So neon is a pink card with that funny Wi-Fi symbol thing. And what this does, this is a repulsor beam. And what that does, that moves you away from the closest ship. So essentially, it's a complete opposite of the yellow card we just looked at. So in this example, if red was moving, the closest ship is yellow. He moves away from the closest ship. So he now moves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because remember, this one now moves you 6 spaces. And again, if this was set up, if yellow had played this, the nearest ship at the moment is now black. So yellow would move forward. And poor old black would be back in the singularity, because again, the nearest ship is yellow, so he moves away from it. So again, very important to remember, pink doesn't move you backwards, it just moves you away from the nearest ship. And then we have blue. And if you look at the board again, blue, there are only 2 blue cards. So this is the newly discovered element, I believe they call that, or the never before discovered. They've made it up, basically. They were looking for a J, and they've called it, I don't know if it's going to focus, there we go, Jacarium. Oh, that's not great, there we go. So this has got those weird kind of triangle things. Blue cards, 2 blue cards in there, are tractor beams. What this does, and again, so just to explain this, that's clearly the J position. So the other one we know would be obviously further, probably moves you 3 spaces. So what the tractor beam does, the tractor beam actually doesn't move you at all. It moves everybody else. So let's say yellow played this tractor beam card, the Jacarium. And remember, it's going to move 2 spaces. But yellow himself doesn't move. Everybody else moves. And essentially what the game says is you start with the nearest ship, and then you work outwards gradually. So black would move 2 spaces towards yellow. Red would move 2 spaces towards yellow, in this case backwards. And the 2 derelict ships both move as well. 1, 2, and down here, 1, 2. Okay, so that's the basics of movement. So again, remember, the colour card tells you the type of movement, the number tells you how far you move, and the letter tells you when you move. That's something we haven't come to yet, but we will in a sec, when we talk about how you play. But first of all, let's cover another couple of brief examples of movement. So, we've covered the main rules, but there's one particularly special scenario we need to cover, which is what happens if you have a scenario like this. And in fact, when I first started doing this, you might realise I moved the yellow ship at one point. The reason I moved the yellow ship was because we were in this situation. I suddenly realised actually that wouldn't work, so I moved the yellow ship there. So, imagine the yellow ship is the one that's now going to move. He's got a bit of a problem in which he is equidistant between the 2 other ships. So what does he do? Well, in this example, what you do is you have a look at the total number of ships on both sides of you. And by both sides, obviously imagine this was not rather than a spiral, imagine this was a straight line. So yellow's here, he's got 1 ship behind him, the black, and he's got, you might think he's got 1, but he doesn't. He's got 1, 2, 3 ships ahead of him. So in this case, he would move, if we look at this plutonium again, he'd move towards the ships with the side with the most ships. So in this case, he'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So although he was equidistant when he started, there's more mass, if you like, on this side. Now, let's do one other scenario. And it makes no difference how they happen to be one space here. These 2 could have been, there, or it could have been it could have been like that, where there is exactly 6 spaces between both of them. And again, in this case, obviously, there's still more ships this way round, so yellow would have moved here. But now, what would happen? And again, if it was like this, again, there's still more ships this side, so yellow would still move this way. which is great. But now let's see what would happen if instead of it being like that, it was something like, let's see how we do this. Something like that. And in this case, let's consider it being red's turn to move. And let's say red has just played, again, our old favourite, the plutonium card. So in this case, remember, red is going to move towards a nearest ship. He's going to move 5 spaces towards a nearest ship. But in this case, he's got a problem. Again, so he's between 2 ships. There's 2 spaces between him and yellow, and there's 2 spaces between him and the derelict ship. And then if we look further, we'll see actually this side, so coming this way, there's 2 ships, the 2 derelicts, and this way there's 2 ships, the 2 player ships. So which one takes priority? Now you might think, well, black's nearer than this one, so there must be more gravity this way. Actually, what the rules say is it's immaterial of distance. It doesn't matter. If you're equidistant between 2 ships, and there's the same number of ships on both sides, then you just stay where you are. So in this case, this card would essentially be wasted or just be spent, but red stays where he is. And the very, very last rule I need to clarify very quickly is what happens if yellow had got into this situation. So yellow was here. The ships were, and again, they played plutonium. So clearly, seeing as every other ship's ahead of him, he moves forward. And he moves forward, if we remember, 5 spaces. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. But he can't land on red. You can never share a space. So in this case, you hop over red, and you go to the next space. Now you'll notice when counting, let's say I started here, I still count that space. So it's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just if I was going to be here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I still count this one, but I have to land 1 extra. And that works whether you're moving forward or backwards. So again, the game continues until one player reaches the warp gate. In which case, the game ends immediately. Now, you don't have to hit it exactly. It's just if you manage to move onto that space, even if your movement was going to take you past there, then you win. Now, there's one other game-ending condition, which is the round marker. So the game takes place over 6 rounds. If by the end of round 6, nobody's reached the end yet, then whoever's furthest along the track wins. Although I have to say, I've played this about 8 times now, and I've never ever seen that. It's never even got close. It normally finishes, I've had it finish around, round 3, round 4 probably, somewhere around there. So that's the movement rules. That's the cards, that's how they work. So I think it's probably worth discussing how a turn works and how a round works. So the game takes place over 6 rounds, but what's a round? So what's going to happen at the beginning of a round, you're going to deal out 3 of these stacks, or 3 piles, per player. So in a 3-player game, we've got 9 stacks. And a stack consists of 1 face down card and 1 face up card. In player order, you take it in turns to draft these cards. So what do we mean by that? Well, at the beginning of the game, the rulebook says you go from youngest player to oldest player. Essentially, I always take that as meaning you go from the least experienced to the most experienced. Although what normally happens is the most experienced goes first to show you how to do it. But essentially, what's going to happen is players are going to take these cards and form decks with them. Now, let's say we've got, and I'll come back over here for a sec. Let's say that 1, 2, 3, 4. It's hard doing this one-handed. 5, 6. Okay, let's say this is one of the players' hands, and we'll say, let's put everyone back to where they were. Oops. Actually, no, let's not put everyone back to where they were. Let's just have them out here for a little bit. Okay, we'll do that. And let's say I'm playing the yellow player. Okay, and this is yellow player's hand. Okay, let's see if we can get all this in. Okay, Okay, so we've got Neon and Jacarium. Worsternium, again, this isn't the... this is apparently a made-up element. I believe W is actually tungsten. Oxygen, magnesium, and gallium. So obviously magnesium, by the way, is, as you can probably see from the graph here, it's the highest card, the highest movement, and it's right in the middle of the alphabet. So let's assume, and what's going to happen is, as a player, you are going to select one of these cards to play, and it's a bit like something like Seven Wonders or even Libertalia, something like that, where you're going to select a card, you're going to place face down in front of you, everybody else is going to do the same, and then you simultaneously reveal. So in this case, and I'm not going to go into the logic of why I'd play this card, but I'd play that card. Okay, now bear in mind yellow's right at the back at the moment. And I'm just going to do these randomly here. I'm going to say that that's yellow's card, that's yellow, that's red, that's black. So all three players have played, we now reveal. So that was black's, that's red, and that's yellow. Now, first of all, they're all They're all yellow cards, which again isn't unusual, bearing in mind how many yellows there are compared to anything else. But now what we do is we resolve in alphabetical order from A through to Z. And just make this really, really easy, there is only one element per letter. So you don't have to kind of think, does RU become before RO, for example? So in this case, I comes first. So Iridium moves first. That was, I think I said that was red, yeah? So he'd move, and he'd move 6 spaces towards the nearest ship. Looking here, the nearest ship is yellow, so he'd actually move back 6 spaces. So in fact, we'll do that now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that card then gets discarded into a discard pile. Then we've got plutonium and magnesium. Well, magnesium comes next in the alphabet. So yellow, and now yellow's got a problem, because now yellow was going to move ahead. Now he's not. Now he's going to move backwards. And he'd end up back in the singularity, which is a pain. Okay, but let's say he does that for now. And then black then moves forward 5 spaces towards the nearest ship. And this is where we now have to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's a pity. So he'd move back 5 spaces. Okay. So that wasn't a great turn for anybody. And clearly I just played randomly, so it's kind of to be expected. When you're actually playing the game, you need to think about what cards people are likely to play, where they're likely to be in your turn order. Do you want to play an early card or a late card? Do you want to play a late card in the hope that someone moves first? But there's one more thing I just need to show you. So that was black's card, that was yellow's card, and that was red's card. And let's put everyone back. So black moves forward 5 now. I can't actually remember where yellow was. I think yellow was here. Somewhere. Something like that. So, let's say red goes first, as he did before, because he's still got I. And now let's say that he thinks, oh, I don't really want to move backwards. I was hoping that yellow might have played an earlier card. Now, there is something he can do. And once per round, you can do this, which is each player has one of these. An emergency stop card. And what you do once per round, if you decide that, oh, you don't really want to move, you can actually flip it over, and that card essentially gets cancelled. So that would just go into the discard space, but red stays where he is. And now let's just see how that affects things. So now yellow would move 10 spaces. So that would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's happy about that. And then black. And black now moves. What's the nearest ship? Well, now it's yellow, so he now moves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hopefully, even that quick demonstration, you can see how much, I suppose, chaos there can be, how much one little decision can change a round or a turn. That is a movement phase, everyone playing one card, and a movement round is once all 6 cards have been played. Okay, so once I played all these cards, The round starts again. All the cards get shuffled, including the ones that weren't used. Because clearly in a 3-player game, you're only using 18 cards out of 26. You shuffle all them together. You reset your emergency stop card, and you advance around to the next. You advance a round marker to the next round, and that's how you play Gravwell. So join me again. I'll set up a 3-player game, and I'll try and play as properly as I can. Okay, take care for now.